Andrew Jackson, the 7th President of the United States, was born in the year 1767 into poverty in the Waxhaws region between North and South Carolina. He was orphaned during the Revolutionary War, and he studied law, becoming a successful lawyer in Tennessee, which catapulted him into politics. His military exploits, especially his victory at the Battle of New Orleans in 1815 during the War of 1812, cemented his national fame. Jackson was known for his populism and also establishing the Democratic Party, making him a champion of the common man. However, his policies and actions brought a significant controversy. One of the most controversial things he did was the Indian Removal Act of 1830, which led to the forced displacement of Native American tribes along the Trail of Tears. Critics condemned this as inhumane, while supporters saw it as advancing American expansion. Jackson also waged war against the Second Bank of the United States, vetoing its recharter and removing federal deposits, actions viewed by opponents as an abuse of executive power. His temper and willingness to bypass norms earned him the nickname King Andrew I among critics. During his presidency, Jackson was polarizing as he was adored by his rural and working class base, but loathed by elites and reformers. His post-presidency reputation fluctuated, as in the 19th century, he was celebrated as a hero of democracy, but modern perspectives often criticize his treatment of Native Americans and authoritarian tendencies. Jackson passed away on June 8, 1845 at his plantation, the Hermitage, near Nashville, Tennessee, with his legacy remaining very divisive. John Tyler, the 10th President of the United States, was born on March 29, 1790, in Charles City County, Virginia. Raised in a prominent family, Tyler studied law at the College of William and Mary, gaining admission to the bar at the age of 19. His political career began in the Virginia House of Delegates, and he later served as a U.S. Congressman, Senator, and Governor of Virginia. Known for his strong commitment to states' rights, Tyler aligned with the Democratic Republicans before joining the Whigs. Tyler's presidency was unprecedented, as he was the first vice president to ascend to the presidency after the death of a sitting president, William Henry Harrison. His assumption of full presidential powers, despite questions over whether he should hold the office, set a precedent. This bold move, however, earned him the mocking nickname, His Ascendancy. Controversy defined Tyler's term in office, as he was a defender of states' rights, which resulted in him clashing with his own party, as he would veto key legislation, including bills to establish a national bank. This led to his expulsion from the Whig Party, leaving him politically isolated. His administration also faced criticism for its aggressive push to annex Texas, a move that worsened tensions over slavery. During his presidency, Tyler was deeply unpopular with much of the public in Congress, and he failed to secure renomination for another term. His post-presidential reputation wasn't good either, as he later aligned with the Confederacy during the Civil War. He died on January 18, 1862, in Richmond, Virginia, as a member of the Confederate House of Representatives. Tyler's legacy remains controversial, often remembered for his defiance of political norms and his divisive policies. Millard Fillmore, the 13th President of the United States, was born on January 7, 1800, in a log cabin in Moravia, New York. Raised in poverty, he worked as an apprentice to a clothmaker before pursuing education in law. He became a successful lawyer and entered politics through the Anti-Masonic Party before joining the Whigs, serving in the New York State Assembly in the U.S. House of Representatives. Fillmore became president after the death of Zachary Taylor in 1850, and his presidency is most remembered for his support of the Compromise of 1850, a series of laws aimed at resolving sectional tensions over slavery. The compromise included the controversial Fugitive Slave Act, which required citizens to assist in the capture of escaped slaves and denied alleged fugitives a trial by jury. While Fillmore argued it was necessary to preserve the Union, many in the North viewed his support for the act as a betrayal of anti-slavery principles, tarnishing his reputation. Fillmore's presidency also saw the opening of trade with Japan through Commodore Matthew Perry's expedition and the enforcement of tariff policies to protect American industries. Despite these accomplishments, his association with the Fugitive Slave Act overshadowed his legacy. During his presidency, Fillmore's popularity was mixed as he retained support in the South but faced growing unpopularity in the North. After leaving office, he failed to regain political relevance, running unsuccessfully as the candidate of the nativist Know Nothing Party in 1856. Fillmore's reputation continued to decline over time, as historians often criticize his inability to address the root causes of sectional conflict. He died on March 8, 1874, in Buffalo, New York, and today, Fillmore is often ranked among the lesser-known and less impactful presidents. Franklin Pierce, the 14th President of the United States, was born on November 23, 1804, in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. The son of a Revolutionary War veteran and state governor, Pierce grew up in a politically active family. After graduating from Bowdoin College, he became a lawyer and quickly entered politics, serving in the New Hampshire legislature, the U.S. House of Representatives, and the Senate. Pierce was a Democrat, while also serving as a general in the Mexican-American War, which bolstered his reputation. Pierce's presidency is remembered as one of the most divisive in American history. He was a strong advocate for national expansion and sought to maintain harmony between the North and South. However, his support for the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 was disastrous. This act repealed the Missouri Compromise, allowing territories to decide the issue of slavery through popular sovereignty. This policy led to heightened tensions, leading to violent clashes in Kansas, known as Bleeding Kansas, and deepening the divide between pro- and anti-slavery factions. Pierce's administration was further ruined by accusations of favoritism towards Southern interests and his inability to unify the Democratic Party. His foreign policy, including efforts to annex Cuba through the controversial Austin Manifesto, also drew in criticism. During his presidency, Pierce's popularity plummeted, specifically in the North, where his perceived pro-slavery stance alienated many. He was denied renomination by his party in 1856, which was a rare thing to happen. After leaving office, Pierce lived in relative obscurity and struggled with personal tragedies, including the loss of his 3 children and his wife's declining health. He died on October 8, 1869, in Concord, New Hampshire. James Buchanan, the 15th President of the United States, was born on April 23, 1791, in Cove Gap, Pennsylvania. Raised in a prosperous family, he studied law and became a successful attorney. Buchanan entered politics as a Federalist, serving in the Pennsylvania state legislature, the U.S. House of Representatives, and later as a senator. He held various diplomatic roles, including Minister of the United Kingdom, which helped solidify his reputation as a seasoned salesman. Buchanan's presidency is widely regarded as one of the most controversial and ineffective in American history. He took office during a period of severe sectional strife over slavery, yet his actions often worsened tensions. Buchanan supported the pro-slavery Lecompton Constitution in Kansas, favoring Southern interests over popular sovereignty, which alienated Northern Democrats and further divided the nation. Another major controversy during his presidency was his perceived inaction as Southern states began to secede following the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860. Buchanan believed secession was illegal, but also claimed the federal government lacked the authority to prevent it, a stance that left the Union paralyzed in the face of crisis. During his presidency, Buchanan faced significant criticism from both Northerners and Southerners. His refusal to take a strong stand against secession or to mediate effectively in the slavery debate tarnished his reputation. After leaving office, he was widely blamed for failing to prevent the Civil War, and his legacy has remained overwhelmingly negative. Buchanan retired to his estate, Wheatland, in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and lived in relative seclusion until his death on June 1, 1868. Historians frequently rank him among the worst U.S. presidents for his inability to navigate the nation through its most perilous time. Andrew Johnson, the 17th President of the United States, was born on December 29, 1808 in Raleigh, North Carolina. Born into poverty, Johnson was apprenticed to a tailor as a child and had little formal education. He taught himself to read and write, and eventually moved to Tennessee, where he entered politics. He rose to become a governor and the U.S. Senator, in which Johnson gained a reputation as a defender of states' rights in the Constitution. Johnson became vice president under Abraham Lincoln in 1865, ascending to the presidency after Lincoln's assassination. His presidency was marked by controversy, primarily over his approach to Reconstruction, and he advocated for leniency toward the former Confederate states, granting widespread pardons and opposing civil rights legislation designed to protect freed African Americans. His opposition to the 14th Amendment, which granted citizenship to former slaves, and his vetoes of key Reconstruction bills led to clashes with the Republican-controlled Congress. Johnson's inflammatory rhetoric and resistance to congressional Reconstruction culminated in his impeachment in 1868, the first in U.S. history. The House of Representatives charged him with violating the Tenure of Office Act by attempting to remove Secretary of War Edwin Stanton without Senate approval. Johnson narrowly avoided removal from office by 1 vote in the Senate. During his presidency, Johnson faced widespread unpopularity, particularly in the North, where many viewed him as an obstacle to progress on civil rights and Reconstruction. In the South, he was seen as a moderate ally, but failed to garner lasting support, and after leaving office, he returned to Tennessee and briefly served as a U.S. Senator before his death on July 31, 1875. Woodrow Wilson, the 28th President of the United States, was born on December 28, 1856, in Staunton, Virginia. Raised in the post-Civil War South, Wilson studied at Princeton University, the University of Virginia School of Law, and earned a doctorate in political science from Johns Hopkins University. His career as a scholar and university president at Princeton led to his entry into politics, culminating in his election as governor of New Jersey in 1910. Wilson's presidency was marked by significant accomplishments and controversies, as domestically, he implemented progressive reforms, including the Federal Reserve Act, antitrust legislation, and labor protections. However, his administration resegregated federal workplaces, reversing progress for African Americans. Wilson's views on race, including support for segregation, and his endorsement of the racist film The Birth of a Nation, have made him one of the most divisive figures in American history. Internationally, Wilson's leadership during World War I brought both praise and criticism. He initially kept the US neutral, but entered the war in 1917 to, quote, make the world safe for democracy. His post-war vision, embodied in the 14 points in advocacy for the League of Nations, aimed to foster global peace but met strong opposition at home. The Senate's rejection of the Treaty of Versailles and US membership in the League marked a significant failure of his presidency. Wilson suffered a stroke in 1919, leaving him largely incapacitated during his final years in office. His handling of the war, civil liberties restrictions, and failure to address racial inequality left a mixed legacy. Public opinion during his presidency was polarized, with widespread acclaim for his wartime leadership, but growing criticism of his domestic policies. Wilson died on February 3, 1924, in Washington, D.C. Warren G. Harding, the 29th President of the United States, was born on November 2, 1865, in Blooming Grove, Ohio. Raised in a modest, rural household, Harding pursued a career in journalism, becoming the owner and publisher of a successful newspaper. His charisma and public speaking skills propelled him into politics, where he served as an Ohio state senator, lieutenant governor, and U.S. senator before being elected president in 1920 on a platform of a return to normalcy following World War I. Harding's presidency was initially well received as he prioritized economic recovery, reduced taxes, and promoted business-friendly policies. He signed significant legislation, including the Emergency Quota Act, which restricted immigration, and established the Bureau of the Budget to improve government efficiency. However, his administration quickly became overshadowed by scandal. The most infamous controversy was the Teapot Dome Act, in which members of Harding's administration, including Interior Secretary Albert Fall, accepted bribes for leasing federal oil reserves to private companies. Other scandals, involving corruption among his appointees, tarnished Harding's reputation. Although Harding was not directly implicated, his perceived failure to oversee his administration effectively led to widespread criticism. Harding's personal life also contributed to his controversy. Allegations of him having multiple affairs and revelations about his private conduct emerged after his death, further damaging his legacy. During his presidency, Harding was popular with the public, admired for his demeanor and commitment to stability. However, after his sudden death on August 2, 1923, in San Francisco, California, the scandals that surfaced caused a deep decline in his historical reputation. Herbert Hoover, the 31st President of the United States, was born on August 10, 1874, in West Branch, Iowa. Orphaned at a young age, he was raised by relatives and demonstrated a strong work ethic. Hoover studied engineering at Stanford University, becoming a successful mining engineer and humanitarian, known for organizing food relief efforts during World War I. His public service earned him the position of U.S. Secretary of Commerce under Presidents Harding and Coolidge, where he promoted efficiency and innovation in business and government. Hoover's presidency began with promise, but was quickly overshadowed by the onset of the Great Depression following the stock market crash of 1929. His approach to the crisis made him a controversial figure. Hoover believed in limited government intervention and relied on voluntary cooperation from businesses and local governments to address the economic collapse. Critics argued these measures were inadequate as unemployment soared and poverty spread. Hoover's refusal to provide direct federal aid to individuals, along with his insistence on maintaining a balanced budget, fueled public discontent. His use of federal troops to disperse the bonus army, who were World War I veterans demanding early payment of promised bonuses, further damaged his reputation. During his presidency, Hoover's popularity plummeted, and he lost the 1932 election in a landslide to Franklin D. Roosevelt. In the years that followed, Hoover defended his policies and remained active in public service, contributing to government efficiency and humanitarian efforts during World War II. However, his name remains synonymous with the hardships of the Depression. Herbert Hoover died on October 20, 1964, in New York City. While his engineering and humanitarian achievements were admired, his presidency is often criticized for its perceived ineffectiveness during one of the nation's greatest economic crises. John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, was born on May 29, 1917, in Brookline, Massachusetts. Raised in a wealthy and politically prominent family, he attended Harvard University and served in the Navy during World War II. Kennedy entered politics as a U.S. representative and later a senator from Massachusetts, earning a reputation for his charisma and progressive ideas. He was elected president in 1960, narrowly defeating Richard Nixon, and his presidency was marked by both significant achievements and controversies. Domestically, he championed civil rights, economic reform, and the ambitious goal of landing a man on the moon. His handling of the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, where he negotiated the removal of Soviet nuclear missiles from Cuba, is considered a major success. However, his administration's failed Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961, an attempt to overthrow Fidel Castro, was widely criticized and undermined U.S. credibility. Kennedy's personal life also attracted scrutiny, as allegations of his multiple affairs, including high-profile figures, emerged after his passing, and this damaged his public image. His health issues, kept secret during his lifetime, also raised questions about his physical fitness for office. Public opinion during his presidency was largely favorable, bolstered by his youth, eloquence, and vision for a new frontier, and his assassination on November 22, 1963, in Dallas, Texas, shocked the world and elevated his legacy. After his death, the public largely focused on his leadership during crises and his inspirational rhetoric. While Kennedy remains one of the most popular presidents in American history, critics argue that his administration lacks substantial legislative achievements and that his personal endeavors complicate his legacy. Despite this, he is celebrated for his vision, charisma, and impact on American culture and politics. Lyndon B. Johnson, the 36th President of the United States, was born on August 27, 1908 in Stonewall, Texas. Raised in a modest household, he worked as a teacher before entering politics. Johnson served in the U.S. House of Representatives, the Senate, and as vice president under John F. Kennedy. Following Kennedy's assassination in 1963, Johnson assumed the presidency. His time in office was marked by significant achievements and also deep controversies. Domestically, he is best known for his ambitious Great Society program, which aimed to eliminate poverty and racial injustice. Major legislative accomplishments, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and the establishment of Medicare and Medicaid. These reforms earned him praise from progressives but alienated many Southern Democrats, contributing to political realignment. Johnson's handling of the Vietnam War made him a polarizing figure. Escalating U.S. involvement in the conflict, he faced intense criticism as the war dragged on, with rising casualties and no clear end in sight. The war fueled widespread protests, damaged his public approval, and overshadowed his domestic achievements. His decision not to seek re-election in 1968 reflected the toll that the war had on his presidency. After leaving office, he retired to his Texas ranch and died on January 22, 1973. Today, his legacy remains complex, celebrated by his domestic policies, but criticized for his role in escalating the Vietnam War. Richard Nixon, the 37th President of the United States, was born on January 9, 1933, in Yorba Linda, California. Raised in a modest household, he excelled academically, attending Whittier College and Duke University's School of Law. After serving in the Navy during World War II, Nixon entered politics, becoming a congressman, senator, and vice president under Dwight D. Eisenhower. He was elected president in 1968, and his time in office was marked by significant achievements and also controversies. Domestically, he implemented policies that expanded federal programs, such as creating the Environmental Protection Agency, and introduced initiatives addressing civil rights and economic challenges. Internationally, he is credited with groundbreaking diplomacy, including opening relations with China and negotiating the Paris Peace Accords, which ended U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. Nixon's controversies largely stem from his actions and scandals, and the most infamous was the Watergate scandal, a break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters, and subsequent cover-up orchestrated by members of his administration. The release of the Nixon tapes, revealing his involvement in the cover-up, led to his resignation in 1974 to avoid impeachment, making him the only U.S. president to resign. Nixon's use of divisive rhetoric, political manipulation, and the expansion of executive power also drew in criticism. Public opinion of Nixon during his presidency was polarized, and his approval plummeted after Watergate. Following his resignation, Nixon worked to rehabilitate his image through writings and interviews, and he died on April 22, 1994, in New York City. His legacy remains deeply divisive, with some praising his foreign policy accomplishments and others condemning his ethical failures. Bill Clinton, the 42nd President of the United States, was born on August 19, 1946, in Hope, Arkansas. Raised in modest circumstances, he excelled academically, attending Georgetown University, earning a Rhodes Scholarship to Oxford, and obtaining a law degree from Yale. His political career began in Arkansas, where he served as Attorney General and later as governor. Clinton's charisma and centrist quote-unquote New Democrat platform helped him win the presidency in 1992. Clinton's time in office was marked by economic prosperity, including a budget surplus and low unemployment, driven by policies such as welfare reform and the North American Free Trade Agreement. However, he was a controversial figure due to both his policies and personal behavior. Critics argued that his centrist approach alienated progressives, where others opposed his handling of issues like healthcare reform and military interventions in Somalia and Kosovo. The most notable controversy of Clinton's presidency was the Monica Lewinsky scandal involving an affair with a White House intern. His initial denial and later admission under oath led to his impeachment by the House of Representatives in 1998 on charges of perjury and obstruction of justice. While the Senate acquitted him, the scandal dominated his second term and tarnished his legacy. Clinton also faced criticism for policies such as the 1994 crime bill, which critics argue contributed to mass incarceration, and for alleged ethical lapses related to the Whitewater investigation. Despite these controversies, his approval ratings remained high, especially due to the strong economy. After leaving office, Clinton remained active in global humanitarian work through the Clinton Foundation. Public opinion about him is divided, with many praising his economic achievements and others focusing on his personal and ethical controversies. George W. Bush, the 43rd President of the United States, was born on July 6, 1946, in New Haven, Connecticut. He was the eldest son of George H.W. Bush, the 41st President, and grew up in Texas. Bush attended Yale University and later earned an MBA from Harvard Business School. After an early career in the oil industry and co-owning the Texas Rangers baseball team, he entered politics, serving as a governor of Texas from 1995 to 2000 before winning the presidency in a contested 2000 election. Bush's time in office was marked by significant controversy. His response to the September 11th attacks defined his time in office, leading to the initiation of the War on Terror. The U.S. invasion of Afghanistan in 2001 and Iraq in 2003 stirred deep divisions. The justification for the Iraq War, specifically the claim that Saddam Hussein possessed weapons of mass destruction, was widely criticized when such weapons were not found. Critics argue these wars caused extensive loss of life, destabilized regions, and tarnished America's global image. Domestically, Bush faced criticism for his handling of Hurricane Katrina in 2005, which many viewed as slow and inadequate. His economic policies, including tax cuts favoring the wealthy and a perceived lack of regulatory oversight, were blamed for contributing to the 2008 financial crisis. Bush's approval ratings fluctuate dramatically, and after 9/11, they soared above 90%, but by the end of his presidency in 2009, they fell to historic lows near 30%. Post-presidency, his public image improved slightly due to his philanthropic work and a perceived personal likability, though his policies remain polarizing. As of 2024, Bush resides in Texas, focusing on painting and veteran support initiatives. Donald Trump, the 45th and now 47th President of the United States, was born on June 14, 1946, in Queens, New York City. He was the fourth of 5 children in a wealthy real estate family. After graduating from the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, Trump took over his father's business, renaming it the Trump Organization. He gained fame as a real estate developer, reality TV host, and media personality before entering politics. Trump's presidency, from 2017 to 2021, was the most polarizing in modern US history. His quote-unquote American First agenda prioritized immigration restrictions, deregulation, and trade renegotiations. He enacted sweeping tax cuts, but faced criticism for increasing the national debt. His administration's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic drew significant scrutiny, with many accusing him of downplaying its severity. Trump's policies, such as the travel ban on several predominantly Muslim countries, and his rhetoric, often seen as divisive, sparked widespread controversy. He faced multiple scandals, including allegations of Russian interference in the 2016 election, which led to a special counsel investigation. In December 2019, Trump was impeached by the House of Representatives for abuse of power and obstruction of Congress, but was acquitted by the Senate. He was impeached again in January 2021 for inciting the Capitol riot, but was again acquitted by the Senate. Public opinion on Trump was deeply divided, and his approval ratings remained consistently low but stable, hovering around 40% during his presidency. After leaving office, he maintained strong support among Republican voters, but remained highly unpopular with Democrats and independents. His countless allegations and criminal charges, as well as his past when he was a ruthless businessman, worsened his public image. With all that being said, he has won the most recent presidential election, and he will take office in 2025. Thank you very much for watching this video, and if you learned something, make sure to leave a like. Comment down below your thoughts on any of the presidents that I discussed in this video, and subscribe if you would like to see more videos like this one. Thank you again, and goodbye.